Shabbat Shalom. Just a few days ago, at about this time of night, a 3-year-old Syrian girl named Yasmin leaned her face into my face for a kiss. She had pierced ears and 2 tiny pigtails. Just a few days ago, Syrian children stuck in Greece waited in line to ride on the shoulders of an American Jewish teenager that grew up in this congregation. Just a few days ago, a teacher who fled the Taliban in Afghanistan read one of my favorite children's books, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, with Laurie Schneider, our early childhood educator. As you know, about 30 of us just got back from Greece, where we met all of these people and so many more. We learned about their stories, their risk-taking, about the horrible, unthinkable conditions from which they fled. There are so many sermons that I could give tonight. There's a sermon about the existence of true evil in the world, about Assad and ISIS and the Taliban. There's a sermon about the responses or non-responses to those regimes, about morality and the responsibility of bystanders. There's a sermon about God's role in all of this. What is God doing while people are running for their lives? There's a sermon about Jews, about our own easily forgotten history of refugeeism. There's a sermon about Zionism, about how this crisis reminds us that Israel can protect the Jews and no one else has or will. There's a lot to say. But tonight I've chosen to give a sermon about something else, something that's stayed with me since I returned. Tonight I want us to spend the next 10 minutes thinking about the human potential for kindness, about the profound and simple act of being kind, about chesed. We met a man who was 25. His hair was already starting to turn gray. He was gentle and artistic with soft features. He's watching right now. Hi. You could tell he was young, but the way he carried himself, he looked very old, like a heaviness had consumed him from the inside out. He wanted so very much for us to know his story, but he was too traumatized to relive it and to tell it himself. He wrote it down and allowed someone else to read it to us. He had to get up and leave the room so he wouldn't hear his own words. Turns out that he was captured by ISIS from his home and held captive. After days of starvation and running and hiding, he escaped to his sacred temple in the mountains, through which he ultimately found safe passage. His religion is called Yazidi. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe not. As a non-Muslim, very ancient religion, Yazidis have been targeted by ISIS and are undergoing mass killings, torture, sex slavery, and imprisonment. He told me about his very ancient religion and told me that his father used to say that there's only a single hair that separates Yazidi from Judaism and Christianity, and that why couldn't we just cut that hair? He felt a kinship with us and our Jewish story of historical persecution and persistence. Now, this man is a refugee. He doesn't know what country he'll end up in. Some of his family has been killed, some is stuck in his home country, and you know what he does with his time? He volunteers. He spends all day from morning until night translating for other refugees. Because he speaks many languages, he takes people to hospitals when they are sick. He helps people express themselves to aid workers when they are in need. Despite that he himself is a refugee who has one of the most gruesome stories to tell, he has dedicated himself to helping refugees. That's chesed. Kindness can persist even in the face of great evil. We call God Rahmana, the compassionate one, for a reason. The potential to do good is always there, no matter what. The rabbis talk about the difference between charity and kindness. They say charity is sparked by witnessing suffering. You give charity when you simply cannot tolerate seeing injustice or human pain. And it's good. It's the right thing to do. But kindness is something much deeper. Kindness, chesed, comes from within. It's a quality in an individual that's present all the time. It's a full-time disposition, not a reflexive act. This Yazidi man, who gives his time even though he doesn't need to, is kind. He embodies the essence of chesed. What I saw from this community here at Stephen Wise in the weeks leading up to the trip, I believe also suggests that chesed is a value for so many of us. Our NGO partners asked us to bring hygiene kits and cell phones, art supplies, money, and books, and we did. I've never seen anything like what this community did. In the weeks before our trip, I would say that I was running a Bed Bath & Beyond on one side of our storage room and a Barnes & Noble on the other. I watched a 4-year-old donate his most cherished book to the cause. His mother hesitated a little. "Are you sure? You realize he won't get it back?" He was sure, and he did it. I watched our members go out of their way to get more donations, calling publishers, gyms, and anywhere else they could think of. People shipped boxes to us of brand new art supplies and sent endless containers of bath products from every place in the universe. Pragmatically speaking, the refugees needed every single thing we brought, plus more. Art supplies are for coloring, but they're also a profound and simple act of creativity. Books are for learning English, but they're also for escapism and imagination. Technology is for communication, but it's also for human connection. Hygiene kits are for cleanliness, but they're also for restoring basic self-respect. We brought them goods, but in doing so, we also brought some dignity to counter the humiliation of refugeeism. With each item we donated, we restored a small piece of their humanity. That was an act of chesed that I believe came from a deep place within this community. So good job. Thank you. Al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed, al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. On 3 things the world stands: on Torah, on worship, and on chesed, acts of loving kindness. Without chesed, we let the evil forces of the world win. We must let our inner kindness come out. We also met a young mother who went into labor in Turkey but had her baby in Greece. She took a great risk in fleeing her home and making a very dangerous journey in hopes that her child would have a better life. And who met her on the shores of Greece where we stood? Of course, an Israeli doctor volunteering his time who delivered her perfectly healthy baby. These humanitarian aid workers from Israel are exemplars of chesed. They've abandoned their home, their lives, and moved around the globe to improve the world. We met an Arab-Israeli Muslim occupational therapist who's now the main organizing volunteer for a large shelter for Syrian refugees in Greece. We met a senior professional who had lived for 2 years in Kenya in the largest refugee camp in the world. Chesed. They have it, they are it, and they make the world better for it. Our task here is to cultivate that quality so that we never forget that we can extend a hand. We can do good in the world. And in this case, I think we did. From the Bima here, my words are often driven by my belief that we Jews should be more particularistic. I tend to think we should feel more loyal to Jews around the world and to each other. I believe that we should preserve our differences from others rather than diminish them. But in this case, the only response I can think of to witnessing these hardships is the universal condition of humankind. We all want the same things: safety, family, and kindness towards one another. Syrian refugee children are just children. They played soccer with us, peekaboo, and slapped me 5 just like the children upstairs do. We cannot alter their political reality, but we can enhance their lives in the short term. Chesed is the key to unlocking humanity and to banishing the forces of evil that persist around us. May God grant strength to the vulnerable people of the world. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. May God bring peace upon us, upon Israel, and upon all the world. Amen.